Welcome students to support tutorial number 8. This is the last in the support tutorial series, and this one deals with market structures. In front of you here you'll see there's two market structures that I've chosen to represent for this introduction, and that is monopolistic competition and oligopoly. And the reason I've chosen these two is they are probably the ones with which you would be most familiar. In other words, if you were looking at any industry, just from an interest perspective, not thinking of economics, you would be familiar with many of the characteristics of these two market structures. But please remember there are 4 market structures and you must know them all well. Just a quick reminder, this tutorial is looking at or focusing on Learning Unit 8 and Learning Unit 9. We'll identify the different market structures. We'll try and understand the equilibrium of all firms in any market structure, but the focus will be on perfect competition initially. We'll look at different types of profits that firms can make from an economics perspective, and we will investigate imperfect competition. You need to understand what I call the spectrum or the continuum. Perhaps the spectrum is more accurate in this case. We look at the one end, we have perfect competition, and at the opposite end, we have pure monopoly. What is the key difference between these two from the simplest perspective? Your perfectly competitive market structure has many small firms that are competing with each other. There is a lot of competition in that market. Whereas if we go to pure monopoly, we have one firm that is supplying a unique product in that industry. So your two extremes, folks. In between, you have monopolistic competition and oligopoly. The only one that is perfect is obviously perfect competition. All the others are considered imperfect competition. What is also important for you to understand is the term market power. Market power is the ability to influence the price of the product or the price of a service. Perfectly competitive firms, they have no ability to influence the price at all. Whereas your monopolistically competitive firm, your oligopoly, and your monopoly are all able to influence the price. All right, so really important for you to remember that. We'll look at it again in a moment or two. Please take note of Table 10-1. It does list for you all the different characteristics of these market structures, and that will help you enormously. In fact, I would suggest you go through that table before you actually try and study these two chapters in detail. Once again, I emphasize this: requirements, conditions, features, characteristics of each of these market structures. You will not recognize them if you don't know each of their characteristics, and also you need to know where they are similar and where they are different, and you will get confused if you don't understand each of them independently. All right, so important for you to get to grips with that, especially before the exam. Then you must be able to tell us what we mean by price takers and what we mean by price makers. The only one of these market structures where a firm or the participants are price takers is perfect competition. All the others are price makers. Your price taker has to accept the price that has been given. They have no market power, and generally price is equal to marginal cost. Whereas in the case of your price makers, they have some control, not total control, but some control over their price, varying depending upon what market structure you're looking at, and price is usually greater than marginal cost. Two really important rules, ladies and gents. That's what your NB rules means, your shutdown rule and your profit maximizing rule. Please make a note that this that you see on the screen in front of you is just shorthand. In other words, it's little tips to help you remember these two rules. The detail on the rules is to be found in the textbook, in your notes, potentially in slides that your lecturer may have provided you with. Looking quickly at the shutdown, what is the shorthand? You are at a shutdown point where total revenue is equal to total variable cost, or average revenue is equal to average variable cost. Please pay attention to this. These abbreviations come from Learning Unit 7. If you didn't understand or haven't studied Learning Unit 7 in detail, you're going to struggle to understand what we're talking about here. All right. more detail on shutdown and profit maximizing in a moment. Your profit maximizing is also known as equilibrium and output decision of the firm, and this is where marginal revenue is equal to marginal cost. There'll be more on this later as well. Your profit rules, here you have to look at average revenue and average cost. Now, what is really important here is to understand that you've got three different situations. You've got an economic profit, you've got a normal profit, or what we call zero economic profit, and then you've got economic loss. Students generally don't have a problem with economic profit and economic loss, except that you must know that economic profit can also be called supernormal profit, excess profit, abnormal profit, and now we need to know why. And also, why is AR equal to AC, which is arguably break even? Why is it normal profit? And the answer to that, folks, lies in the fact that average cost or total costs in the case of economics includes the cost of entrepreneurship. And remember, the return or the cost of entrepreneurship is profit. So when we're talking about normal profit, we're saying that a firm is in fact already making a profit, the minimum it needs to actually stay in business. That is why we say there is a normal profit at break even in economics. In accounting, break even implies that there is no profit. So please be clear on that, otherwise you will be confused with a lot of the information that you are studying. Now we go into perfect competition. At this point, the chapter now goes and it says, what is perfect competition? Now you need to know the characteristics. If you've looked at the table, you will already have picked some of those up. But let's quickly refresh. Perfect competition means we have a large number of buyers and sellers. No individual can influence the price. We also have a homogeneous product. The product is the same. In other words, if we look at the picture we've got here, carrots are carrots are carrots, or cabbages are cabbage. Oh, this is cauliflower. Rather, cauliflower is cauliflower is cauliflower. Don't think any more about it. Homogeneous for perfect competition. There are no barriers to entry. Anyone can come in or leave this market. This means that we now have to understand what does this mean if we have got perfect competition? In other words, what does a firm that operates in this market look like? Well, first of all, we have to understand that the demand curve is a straight line. So there is your demand curve, which is a straight line at the market price, whatever the price, the equilibrium price is in the market. You then must also understand that P is equal to AR is equal to MR. Once we know that this is the situation, we have to then apply some of our other rules. Is the firm still in business? Well, we're going to assume that it is, so we can ignore the shutdown rule for now, but we can never ignore the profit maximizing rule. Let's take a look. Here's your profit maximizing rule or your equilibrium or your output decision. The firm has the straight line demand curve. How does it decide what quantity it should produce? Well, it must import or consider the marginal cost. So here we go. There's your marginal cost and there's your marginal revenue, the price in the market or the demand curve for this firm. How do we identify MR is equal to MC? Well, that's real easy because you just find where those two curves intersect each other, or those two lines in this case intersect each other. What is more important now is, can you explain why we should stop at that point and why is it equilibrium? Well, let's look first at the situation where MR is greater than MC. This means that each additional unit that you produce will add more to your total revenue than it will to your total cost, and therefore your profit will increase. This means that the firm should produce more. If, however, we find ourselves in this territory where MR is less than MC, there's my MR, there's my MC, this means that each additional unit that I produce will add more to my costs than to my revenue, and therefore my profit will decrease. This means that I should reduce my output or decrease my output. Make sure you can explain that, all right? The next trick is, what sort of profit are we making? Now, when we were looking at equilibrium, it didn't tell us what sort of profit we were making. It just told us what quantity we should produce, profit maximizing quantity. But now what we want to do is look at how do we identify what sort of profit we are making. Well, first of all, we need our equilibrium position. So there we go, back into equilibrium. MR is equal to MC. And then, as I taught you with your profit rules, what we need now is our AC curve. And if, as I say here on the slide, we want to show economic profit, which is profit on top of profit or excess profit, then we have to put our AC curve in a position that will illustrate that. So there comes our AC curve, and now we can see that is indicating that our average cost is less than our average revenue, or our average revenue is greater than our average cost, and that tells us that we are making economic profit. But now in the short run, we could be in three possible positions. We could be in economic profit, we could be in normal profit, we could be in economic loss. Now, all you have to do to illustrate or change the graph in front of you here is simply move your average total cost curve. Let's take a quick look. There would be your economic loss. Where's your average total cost? Now it's above your average revenue curve. So we can see our average cost is higher than our average revenue. That means our firm is making an economic loss. What about a normal profit? There we have it, normal or zero economic profit. In this case, my average revenue is equal to my average cost. Well, folks, that's the end of part 1. Now we will, in part 2, go from the short run to the long run for perfect competition. See you later.